Do you hear my dog bark in the background, by the way?
No, I don't hear it right now. No.
Okay.
All right,
That's a.
we are live. Okay. What's going on, guys? This is
You hear my dog bark in the
PnC
back?
Dynasty podcast, episode 15, I believe. Week 4 has just completed. We had some crazy matchups in our league and some crazy matchups in the NFL. We do still have one undefeated team in the Arizona Cardinals beating the Rams, which is kind of surprising the way they smacked them down. Um, and we just see the Bills just outscoring and outperforming their teams constantly. However, they are playing shit teams these last couple of weeks, so we'll see when they play Kansas City if that will change, or they might 35-0 them. Who knows? Which is
Yeah.
very doubted. Going into the news here, we we really didn't have a lot besides the triple M. And when I say triple M, I mean all three triple M last name running backs in Montgomery, Mixon, and Mitchell, all having somewhat of an injury or coming back from an injury. And it's looking
Who has
like
two of those? Who has two of those players, Vinny?
I guess you do, yeah. You have Mixon, but you have Mitchell, who's coming back, right?
Yeah.
And
I
you got
believe when
Trey
I see it.
Sermon. Yeah, who knows with that one.
Yeah.
But it may hurt you a little bit. It probably does, depending on how Mixon does, because he was performing a little bit. But then you have Montgomery, who's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks,
Yeah.
probably around that time frame. With
Yeah.
a, I guess I would say he's lucky. Not really lucky. He got injured, but it's
You
not
avoided the
too
worst
crazy.
case scenario.
Exactly. And that team is going to be now something to watch in that backfield because is Justin Fields going to be the running back even though he's not starting because Andy Dalton's not going to have anyone back there to help him out to take pressure off. So that's going to be very
Yeah.
interesting.
I think Damian Williams takes over the role. He took over the role once Montgomery went down.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Khalil Herbert, but I don't
Yeah,
know if he fits what they're trying to do right now. Damian Williams is a lot better in pass blocking right now. And with how bad that offensive line is, I would assume that pass catching and pass blocking would be the biggest emphasis, especially if Dalton is the QB, which if he's healthy, it sounds like that's going to be the case,
I
which
believe so.
is just a different discussion that we won't get into right now.
Yeah, very true. Um, I mean, then again, Dalton has probably shown more I guess better gameplay in terms of throwing the ball and running the field with that team. But also Justin Fields is new. He started one game. Montgomery kind of saved his ass by running all over the Lions. So I guess the
Yeah.
Lions is a pretty good team to be your first start to get your feet wet or second start, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would say so. A lot easier than the Browns.
That's true. Not too much news though, and when in the
That's a
NFL,
good thing.
but a lot of crazy news and a lot of crazy things happening in our league
Yeah.
because big matchups turned into blowouts, and matchups that we thought were dumpster fires turned into pretty close games. And
Yeah.
that, and we're gonna go over one right now, and that's Derek versus Dan because that was something where Derek was actually talking smack, saying he's going to absolutely destroy him. He was going to play Matt Ryan over Baker Mayfield because he was willing to take that risk. And it wound up biting in his ass because he didn't start him. I think we convinced him not to start him.
Yeah.
So he would have put up an extra like 30 points and been way above the median in that sense and with points for. And he would actually be in second place because he would have been closer to me in points.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean we talked about Matt Ryan looking cooked, and I mean
Mm-hmm.
he does still look cooked. Like, this doesn't change my opinion on him. He had
No,
4 passing touchdowns, which is not going to be the norm. Cordero
not at
Patterson
all.
was responsible for probably 2 of those touchdowns all by himself, frankly. So
He is an animal.
yeah, he is an animal, and we'll get to him in a second with our matchup. But Yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan took 42 attempts and only had 283 yards. That tells me everything I need to know that that's a bit of an outlier. Um, but this just goes to the point that Derek is going to have a real problem in the playoffs if he doesn't get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Now, it's granted it's the easiest position to get in the league, but this game was a lot closer than it should have been, and
Agreed.
the quarterback play is a huge reason why.
Yes.
So
yeah, because he also had Dan also had a few underperformers. I mean, his defense, that's a big deal, -1. But you have his tight end putting up 7. I guess that's around what Conklin would do. But Juju has just been a dumpster this year.
Terrible.
Godwin another week. And then, of course, his running backs, Kareem Hunt has been solid. I think he's a better PPR running back than Nick Chubb at this point. And then, of course, Herbert giving him 27 points last night really helped him, get closer in the matchup. But
Kobe Myers was also really good.
Oh, yes. Yes. He actually played very well against Tampa Bay. It was and that team actually looked really good. I liked Mac Jones in that game. I really did.
Kobe Myers is a good wide receiver. He's the number 1 wide receiver on a team that has a lot of passing opportunities, doesn't really throw the ball down the field. He's kind of a better Juju Smith-Schuster at this point.
I agree. In this state, in this year so far.
Yeah, in this year, absolutely.
CeeDee Lamb take a dump.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb was bad. Kelsey bad. You just write those off and just don't really think about it.
You write them off and you move on from it because it won't really happen that often. Miles Sanders, though, will continue to be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I was going to say,
are you losing that?
Are you worried about Sanders and Pitts at all? Obviously you're worried about Sanders, but
I'm worried about Sanders. Pitts, I think you can't be worried about him because he's a rookie. Tight end rookies never really pan out within the first year, right? It always takes them a couple of years to develop and build who they are. So you shouldn't be really worried about Pitts. Would I be worried about starting him? Yes, I would be starting him on a matchup basis. So I'm starting him against the Jets. Yep. Maybe against Carolina, but certain games I wouldn't be starting him in my tight end spot. I would be replacing Kelsey, my tight end, and throwing a flex player instead of.
Who would he go with? He would go with OBJ or something, right?
At this point, probably OBJ. Or Hunter Renfrow. He's been very good. I mean, you can't. I know you're upset, but I think Hunter Renfrow. I said it to Haj multiple times on calls before the season. I really do think that he's the wide receiver 1, and he's proving it. And at this point, with how much Derek Carr is throwing, everyone's getting the ball. So
would you start Renfrow over Emmanuel Sanders?
Yes. I think so.
Okay. I don't know if I'm there yet. But
I think I would. They both have opportunities, but Hunter Renfrow,
I just think Sanders is in a better offense, He
is, but he's also in an offense that just either goes ahead really, really quickly or is behind.
Sure.
He does stay close. I guess the Pittsburgh team, that was really weak, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
guess
his average depth of target is a lot better than Renfrow, so he needs less targets to put up as much production.
Yeah.
And he's getting he's had 8, 6, 6, and 6 targets in the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
he's getting good
that's
targets.
Plenty of targets. So that's going to be an interesting thing. We'll get into more about
that would be
the matchup tomorrow, but yeah, I think you can write off a lot of what Derek did. Some of his guys performed as expected. Even Devontae Adams, only 12, almost less than 12.5 points. It's not great.
Another weak performance from him.
Chase Edmonds probably a little bit above what you're expecting, but he's a fine RB2.
I think he continues to put up around 15 points a week. I really do.
Yeah, the one thing that you're worried about with Edmonds is that he's not the preferred touchdown back. James Conner looks washed. He looks like the 2020 Todd Gurley. But if you're getting those touchdown reps, someone's gonna bite the bullet and assume that he's RB1 when everything suggests Chase Edmonds is a lot better at this point.
But yeah, outcome of that game basically predicted by everyone. Closer than we expected, but definitely predicted with Derek winning that one.
I think we all got that one right in our predictions. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I would hope so. I don't think anyone's taking Dan in a long shot with there. Moving on to the next one, we did have Leo versus Pete, who we did call as kind of like one of the the lower end matchups, and it wound up being a nail biter coming down to the last couple games. I don't think it came down to last night with Darren Waller.
Yes.
And Darren Waller was able to put up just 3 points more, 3 points enough to beat Leo. And the main factor in this is really Nyheim Hines putting up 0.1 points. And if he puts up just 4 points, he would have came away with that win, which is kind of crazy. But we did see an overreaction by Leo. I think a slight overreaction by Leo. Montgomery getting hurt. Hines putting up by 0.1. He's just ready to sell his whole team and kind of go for next year, but he doesn't even have his first round pick. So these matchups, these teams.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think his team was very good to begin with. So outside of like Murray and Ridley and I guess Montgomery, like there's that's it. Like everyone else is such a flyer, and I felt like
Corey Davis. I don't think this year is a
Corey. Yeah, I mean Corey Davis is he's a fine like wide receiver 3 at this point.
He's gonna have a flex.
Absolutely, but he's not a guy that you want to rely on every single week. I just think like I don't understand. I think we all saw the Tyson Williams situation coming.
And we wait,
And we all said that was a bad move at the time, and it looks even worse now. That's going to really screw Leo. I don't know if it was this year's pick he gave up. I don't think it was, but still.
Still, he needs those picks.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if you used that first-round pick on someone else. I mean, like I don't know what other running backs were available but for a first-round pick, but I'd assume you could get a pretty decent chunk of running back for a first-round pick.
Agreed. I think you can find someone.
Yeah, anyway, I mean, I think, like, Nyheim Hines, I'm going to kind of write this off. I don't think Nyheim Hines is a bad player. I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
The one thing to keep in mind for context is that the Colts are trying to trade Marlon Mack.
Yes.
And they gave him an audition, and it didn't go that good, but they gave Marlon Mack touches that I think Nyheim Hines would normally get.
Yeah.
So, Hines fumbled, and, it's a weird game for him.
Yeah, and I don't think those touches go back to Marlon Mack after that game, so maybe Hines will step back. But
yeah, I think Mack will be traded to, like, the Ravens or something.
But I mean, if I'm Leo, I'm thinking in and out every single day. Do I start Nyheim Hines or James Conner though? After his past 2 weeks, he is starting to be utilized a little more. He does have that touchdown potential for the goal line, which is very helpful in points, especially when when you're weak at running back. So, but moving to the matchup a little deeper, I want to say that this is what we're going to see on average between these two teams. Around the 135 mark week in and week out, with guys doing what they're supposed to do, and then one or two guys underperforming with one or two guys overperforming it, like Justin Jefferson. He most likely will overperform, as well as Darren Waller and DeAndre Hopkins, but the other guys will probably slow him down a little bit in terms of that. And the same thing with Leo. I mean, Kyler Murray will always be putting up like 25 points. Now with Montgomery out, though, he's looking low 100s moving forward in this week, and I think he's going to become another easy matchup like Dan is.
I agree. I mean, would you take Dan or Leo right now if they had a matchup?
If they had a matchup?
Yeah.
Dan.
I think I might still go
I'll go Dan.
Leo, but
Dan, I feel like Dan's players have more upside. His running backs have more upside. His wide receivers definitely have more upside. Or not definitely have more upside, but they have similar upside to what he has. Quarterbacks are very similar to upside. I just think the running backs is the key point because Kareem Hunt has more upside than Nyheim Hines. So
I agree. I mean, this kind of goes into the whole topic of depth.
Yeah, it
teams are
really is.
gonna get some injuries, and I would
It's
say
gonna
that this
happen.
was on the low end in terms of the number of injuries this week. So
And this
it's gonna
year.
happen. Yeah, yeah, it's gonna happen. And Leo's team is really the first one to really feel a major injury. I mean, I don't consider McCaffrey a major one, so
Hmm.
yeah, we said this was a possibility. Tyson Williams was never the solution, and the fact that Leo doesn't have other running backs besides Naheem Hines for his RB2 spot cost him this matchup, cost him
I
the
agree.
one win.
I agree. And that was something that I think when we split half and half, or actually no, I think you or Derek only chose Peter, correct? I don't remember. However,
I have it up
I think
in
a
front
lot
of
of
me
yeah, I think a
here.
few of us chose Leo
Yeah,
in this
so
matchup.
all but Derek actually
Yeah,
chose Leo.
this is something that Derek actually got a yeah. Um,
Pete's team still doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence.
mhm.
That running back room is just not good,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, that's true.
Like the wide receivers and tight ends need to hit every single week,
Agreed. And
Um,
sometimes they don't. That's where he puts up the low number of points and doesn't make the
yeah,
median, which hurts. Um,
yeah.
so moving
I
on to
think
the oh,
is this
yeah,
the lowest point? One last thing, is this the
yeah,
lowest point total to win a matchup this year?
131.
100, 131? That seems right.
Let's see, week one, 131.8. It was Chris week one, so very close. Actually, no, 125.74 was Parker. He beat Derek after that kicker performance. Yeah,
Oh gosh. Okay.
125 points was the lowest points to
All
win
right.
a week. So
Okay.
this would be the second lowest. But yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But moving on to your matchup, Smith, which for me, I think I was the only one to say that Parker was going to win. And the emotions were correct. The gut feeling was correct here. Was I expecting almost 60 points? Of course not. Not even close did I think that you guys would be 60-point difference. You had a very painful week. I mean, Mixon did get hurt. He was your top performer outside of your quarterback, and he was hurt, which is kind of scary. And I think it comes down to really the matchups that they were up against and just how the overall teams performed. I mean, going up against the Bears, I think the Bears just had a really good game. They really needed that game, so that caused two of your players to really hurt. Um,
Yeah.
and just overall, just really shitty performances. And I think this is your floor. Like obviously, this is way below your floor, but this is probably the lowest that we'll ever see your team go.
Would agree.
I would hope it is that. Um, it's definitely a surprising performance from your team, but I did believe that Parker would win. I didn't believe that it would be this. I thought it would be more of like a Leo and Pete matchup where Parker just snuck by, but how I'm seeing this matchup and what Parker's team just did. If Parker had a really good quarterback, he would be a top 5 team, top 6 team with how these players have been performing this year.
Yeah. Chenault is gonna get more reps with Chark out, so he kind
Hmm.
of lucked into that one. Crowder, outscoring Sutton, I don't think will be the norm.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I
Jonathan
mean,
Taylor finally hitting the end zone, huge, and that's a
yep.
confidence boost, definitely. Deontay Johnson
Do you
coming
think
back, putting up a big game.
do you think Pittsburgh's gonna ride Najee Harris like this the rest of the year?
I think they do. I think he might turn into like a Derrick Henry where they just ride him. He's the only one doing anything somewhat positive on that team. Big Ben is kind of weak, and with Big
Big
Ben
Ben,
is hurt now with like a hip.
yeah.
I don't even know.
I
Najee
trust me,
Harris is
that's
about
not
to
the
get.
reason he sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course not. But I think Harris might actually slow down a bit unless he knows how to get through those holes. Because if I'm Denver, I'm stacking that. I'm making Hashkins throw because we've seen shit from that.
Yeah, I mean Harris
Mhm.
hasn't been particularly impressive on the ground, but
Yeah.
his thing is getting into open space. Alabama, he really didn't need to hit the hole to be effective because he's just better than everyone else in college, and Those holes are a lot smaller in the NFL,
Yes.
especially with a bad offensive line, and that's kind of been my film non-analytical observation there. So
Mm-hmm.
he's doing this with a really bad running game. So imagine if it gets, even
Better.
marginally better.
Yeah.
Yeah. For my team,
Injuries just really hurt you. Like there
yeah,
really is no excuse. That's just
yeah.
injuries.
I mean, I'm not gonna make excuses for myself.
You
I
just got
was
fucked.
I was without Claypool. I was without Higgins. Um, I think I had 8 total injuries, if I'm not
Literally,
mistaken.
the only person that you could have plugged in, which would have made no difference, would be Mooney, and that would be like just throwing in the flex
Yeah,
over Sermon. But it's like one of those things.
yeah.
It's just like you just throw in a player and you just hope they win at that point. Um, but everyone else is just
They just underperformed. I mean, Sutton, you would expect a little bit more as the alpha.
yeah.
I think like I don't really understand the Brandon Ayuk thing. I'm really
I don't
concerned
think
that
anyone
Mohamed
does.
Sanu got more targets than Ayuk, and I think we can all agree Ayuk is a better player by a pretty wide margin at this point. And he looked really good in week 3, outside of like one bad drop. So I just don't understand what's going on there. Um,
Yeah, that's uh
you know,
that's a player that I think needs to be benched the rest of the year.
he probably will be. Yeah, I
Like
mean,
for
if Claypool
fantasy.
comes, yeah, yeah, no, I know. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I would. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, there's no chance in hell that Trent Sherfield or Mohamed Sanu get more touches than Ayuk. But for me, like, I think if Higgins and Claypool are available, or even Mooney at this point, who
Yeah.
Mooney's like top 20, I believe, in targets amongst wide receivers at this point. I think
He,
all of them would probably start
Fields
over
and
Ayuk.
Fields loved him.
Oh yeah, that's gonna. I had a feeling. I had a feeling the Fields Mooney deep field connection would be special.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like that might be the case if he has time to throw.
Agreed.
So I mean, look. I think there's a lot of positive takeaways from this game.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like it was a horrible turnout. I mean, I don't think Swift is going to be outtouched by Jamal Williams. That's just irresponsible on the Lions front. Um, And Sermon or Mitchell, I think one way or the other, you're gonna get a bell cow every week. You just got to figure out which one it's gonna be. I'm fine with doing that. So yeah, look, I've said from the start, I don't think my team is necessarily going to make the playoffs, but I also don't think I'm the worst team in the league. So if I can get a high pick, not be in last place, and remain competitive each week, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, definitely. Nice to see your team shit the bed early in the year instead of later in the year, so
I'll take it.
you know what
I'll
you're looking
take it.
at.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not panicking like some other people
yeah,
in the league.
true. But once
Next
again, though,
matchup.
I mean, just I need to. I really don't understand why Parker doesn't want a quarterback. He gets a quarterback. His team is actually really good. Maybe he'll listen. I've offered him Danny Dimes, even though Danny Dimes is on a shit team. He's a great fantasy quarterback. That's all
The
we care.
Konami,
And
the
it's really,
Konami. Have I brought up the Konami code reference on this podcast yet?
I don't know. Just do
Yeah,
it
it's
again.
like basically a Nintendo code that was like used for video games when like Nintendo was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot who came up with the reference. It was some fantasy analyst I listened to, but the Konami code QB refers to anyone that runs and isn't necessarily a good real life quarterback, but is amazing for fantasy. So he's a Konami code
Yeah,
QB.
just like Jalen Hurts, and I'll ride him all the way to the championship. Moving on to the next matchup, we had another team absolutely get destroyed and once again put up under 100 points. This is the second time back-to-back weeks that we had two teams put up under 100 points. And I mean, Chris's team is just not looking good right now. Like, he has great
Yeah.
names. You look at his team and you just say these names to play, like, to any analyst, and they're like, yeah, that's a really good team. You look at the points, terrible. He's winning matchups against teams that are putting up their least amount of points, and he's not even being able, like, he can't compete against other teams who are putting up low points. Like for Haj, 133 is pretty low, I would say, for his team, and not even be able to break 100 is kind of weak here. And
Yeah.
I mean, he did have a couple underperformers with Chris Carson, Jalen Waddle, Marvin Jones, and then obviously his kicker and defense, which hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But just an overall bad performance. I mean, Evan Ingram, decent at 9, 10 points, basically. I mean, you might be
Well,
you
it's
expect
what you
that.
would have hoped to have expected from him.
Yeah.
You know.
But I definitely know that he's panicking a little bit more as well because he's towards the bottom of the standings and he knows that the points for median is pretty important. And if he's not making that week in and week out, he is just not going to look good.
Is Stephon Diggs the best player traded at the deadline this year?
I think it would be between Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, and that's it.
I would take Diggs by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, I think those two are going to be traded most likely before the trade deadline. Other than that, I don't. I mean, even if Pete's team is out of the playoffs, I don't see him trading. Maybe he trades Hopkins to try and get like a squeeze out of him, but I know he'll overvalue him where people won't pay.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade as much for Hopkins as I would Diggs.
Yeah. But I think it would be those two where it'd be Diggs and Ridley going up against like the top wide receivers to be traded throughout this year.
Ridley is not getting the depth of target he was getting last year. Like the air yards are not anywhere close to what they were last year. He's getting the targets, but he's also just
definitely getting the targets.
He's getting the targets, but he's not catching it. His catch rate is down. Diggs, we said it. It's just a matter of time before he takes off, and he had kind of that game. He went over 100 yards here, 17 points. I would take Diggs by a pretty wide margin. I still think Ridley will be like a borderline wide receiver 1, but I thought he was a wide receiver. I thought he was like the wide receiver 5 coming into the year. So I'm definitely downgrading him a couple spots at least.
Yeah, and looking at Hodge's team, like Matthew Stafford putting up what he should do, Aaron Jones a weak performance. However, when you look down the line, I mean Tyler Lockett weak performance. Robert Woods finally put up double-digit numbers. I think maybe for the first time this year. So. Actually, no. Never mind. He put up 12-12 in the first two, but 14 is kind of like where he should be, around 15. But once again, Deebo Samuel is going ballistic, and I respect the hell out of it. And he's taking advantage of the targets. He's taking advantage of the situation that he's put in, and I think he can continue to prosper. And if he has a connection with Trey Lance, it might be nasty.
Yeah. I would say at this point, Hodge is my favorite to win it all if he can get consistent tight end play. Yeah. I mean,
which his tight ends are hurt. Well, I mean, Logan Thomas is hurt now.
Logan Thomas got hurt. He's like a top 6 or 7 option when healthy. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott is like the RB5 right now, and it's almost like people don't even recognize that because they're just so infatuated with Tony Pollard, who's also very good, but still Ezekiel Elliott's backfield. Like, make no mistake. And Aaron Jones, he had an ankle issue, so they were purposefully giving A.J. Dillon more touches, and A.J. Dillon is probably right there with Tony Pollard as the best backup running back in the game. I think it's them two and then Madison in terms of like talent. So, that's why you go and draft A.J. Dillon. I mean, I still think drafting him in the second round was irresponsible, but I mean, A.J. Dillon is a very good backup running back. So if Jones is even slightly hurt, they're going to put him in, and that's what happens. So I'm not worried about Jones. Tyler Boyd definitely took advantage of T. Higgins not being on the field. I don't think you're going to see that kind of performance every week. Tyler Lockett also had some injury issues.
Yeah. So
not worried about him really. Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, my boy. He fell into the end zone. If you take that out, we're still looking at a pretty lackluster game from him. So we always try to look past the touchdowns because it's kind of not a very good indication of overall success, and everything else that just still doesn't match up with 2020 Robert Woods yet.
No, not even close.
So, but I mean, as a flex, you'll take that any day of the week.
Of course, yeah.
And Hodge does have a pretty deep team. So, unlike the other teams we've talked about, if he has any injuries, he's in a position where he can find someone on the bench, or if he really wants to, he has, I think, only first-round picks at this point. So
Yeah,
he could do that as well. But I
agreed.
like where Hodge is, and, this is kind of the floor for him in a lot of ways, which is a
It's
crazy
definitely
thought.
similar to his floor, and also,
Yeah.
I wonder if he's going to start thinking about playing Clyde Edwards here moving forward. Now that he had 2 back-to-back really good performances, is getting the touchdowns that he needs, and he's putting up against 2 pretty solid defense. Philly's defense is pretty solid in the front, and then you have the Chargers defense who stopped Josh Jacobs in that run last night. So Clyde might be starting to be, might be a player to start in his team, maybe over like Tyler Boyd or Robert Woods, depending on the matchups. I don't think you can bench Tyler Lockett or Debo at this point.
I think I would still start those 2 over Clyde.
You wouldn't consider it a matchup-based kind of thing, like, who has a better matchup, let's throw it in?
I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs don't really play matchup. They kind of make teams play matchup against them. They play their own thing. The thing about Edwards-Helaire is he's been super efficient the last 2 games, and I don't know like what to make of that because he really hasn't been efficient at all besides week 1 of last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna go with the sample size so far and say that this is kind of a mirage. He's not getting targeted like he should be. He's a really good receiving back, and he's getting like 2, maybe 3 targets a game, and he's really not doing much with them.
Yeah.
He did get he did get a touchdown last week, but you know how I feel about banking on touchdowns, especially in that offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fine flex play, but I mean, this kind of goes into how deep I think Hodge's team is, where
It is.
Clyde would probably be the flex for 11 or 10 other teams at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah.
He does have that depth, which I think at first we were kind of worried about, but he did work his way, and build that depth over time, which is really sick.
He did. I mean, I think he listened to us.
Yeah, that's true. So the next matchup is between me and Andy, which I guess was supposed to be one of the crazier matchups, but actually came down to being one of the boring matchups because I absolutely annihilated him. And I think I said this last week on Wednesday when we go over our matchups and saying that it either could go 2 ways. It's either going to be extremely close where it'd be like a 3 or 1 point game, or it's going to be an absolute blowout because there really is no in between when it comes to 2 super teams. Either they don't perform or they're going to really fucking perform. And my team really performed besides 2 players, but that's okay. And Andy's team actually shit the bed. And I would say is his floor.
Yeah.
Like, I would say Andy's floor is this week, and I was able to go up against him when he would hit his floor.
Yeah. Tom Brady,
11 points.
he wasn't really that good.
I did. Sorry for cutting you off, but I did read something on Twitter where people were saying that this is going to be a boring ass game, and it kind of was. Like, they kind of made it intense in their own way, but it really was a shit game.
It was not a good game. Yeah, and the whole like Chris Collinsworth in love with Mac Jones. That was probably the least impressive performance outside of week 3 I've seen from Mac Jones. So I don't know what he's saying there, but just not a good game.
No.
It got exciting at the end, but Tom Brady, you just kind of write that off like, weird situation, kind of probably having a lot of emotion, really bad weather. Keep that in mind.
Really bad weather.
Dalvin Cook coming back from an ankle injury.
Kind of anticipated.
Yeah. I mean, this was a lot worse than I thought it would be. I thought the floor would probably be like, 9, 10 points. So
yeah, I guess
several points below that.
Mm-hmm.
Gibson is interesting because I think he's like, I think he's probably the second best receiving back out of the 2020 class. The top 3 for me would be Swift, Gibson, and Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, this team wants to feed J.D. McKissick. Now, I think some of it's because Gibson's dealt with some injuries. He had like a shin issue, but there really is no reason why Gibson shouldn't be like the hog in that backfield like Joe Mixon is. Like he's got that caliber of talent. So I mean, 15 points is fine, and then Cooper Kupp, kind of like a comeback to earth moment for him.
Yeah.
You know, Mike
Literally.
Williams. I think we can expect better. The targets have been there. It's just kind of a bad week.
Yeah.
Like I like honestly, I'm not. What I'm trying to get is that I'm not worried about Andy's team.
I don't
he
think
made a
anyone.
mistake.
I don't think anyone should be worried about Andy's team. And even if he did
No.
start, if he started Dak Prescott, which is kind of like a tough situation because you really had to analyze the weather. You had to look at the matchups, and Dak I probably would have started Dak as much as I would have hated it because you have that gut feeling. You're like Tom Brady wants to destroy New England in the back of your head. Like this is what's going to happen. He's going to come out trying to destroy them, and that's not what he did. So that's a tough decision. I mean, he really had no one else on his bench that he could have plugged and played besides like maybe Devonta Smith, but you're not really playing Devonta Smith. Maybe you're playing him.
So would you like if you're Parker? Would you trade Trey Lance for Dak Prescott?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you're
100
Andy,
in a
would you,
one-
if
in a
you're
one-
and if you're yeah, and if you're Andy, would you do that?
No, I would laugh in Parker's face and say, you need to give me a lot more.
Okay.
Dak Prescott's only 28. He's a beast. He has a great offense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a 1 QB league as well. Like it's one of those things where it's like,
That's what I'm saying.
Trey
Like
Lance a Herbert yet? No. You know.
Yeah.
For a I guess fantasy point, like is he that rookie that's putting up disgusting numbers? No.
Yeah, no, he's extremely raw. He looked.
Yeah.
He did not look good on Sunday. He's the rawest QB in the class by a pretty wide margin. But yeah, I mean, like that's the kind of player that Parker should be targeting because if he gets like a Dak Prescott, who's like a top 7 quarterback, yeah,
5-7, yeah.
I mean, I would do that. So like, so if you're Parker, you would probably take
I'm telling you.
Lance plus what?
Lance plus what?
Yeah, like
It would
what
probably-
else
I
would you have
mean-
to include?
It would probably have to be picks because Andy's team doesn't need anything else.
Yeah,
He's got youth. He's got pretty solid youth. He's got pretty solid depth. He's got like an overall team where it's just like, why trade away one of your best quarterbacks just for picks in a moment where you can easily win the league the next 2 years if his team continues to be good? Like,
yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that that's the kind of player that Parker could target.
Parker
If he got
needs to
Dak Prescott or
yeah.
dare I say Aaron Rodgers, that team could be really fun, man.
It really is, yeah. And just going over again my performances, I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing that I have a question mark on, besides Allen Robinson, is Alvin Kamara. He has yet to score a touchdown this year. In rushing, a rushing touchdown. He didn't get any targets this past week. However, they did say, Sean Payton said that he would have a different game script because Tony Jones was out and they wanted him to get more of, the ground and pound work in because this was the most I'm pretty sure these were the most carries he's had in a single game. And he put up, over 120. He put up 120 yards on 26 carries, which is phenomenal. However, in PPR, you got no receiving yards. He didn't get a touchdown. So it looks bad for fantasy, but in reality, like, it's nothing to be worried about. In my opinion, it's just like, why you only got to put up 12 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No targets, which is wild.
Yes. First time in a while for him.
Yep. I mean, the analytics show that a target is worth more than 2.5 points more than a carry.
Yep.
So this is not an encouraging trend for Kamara. I do think it's going to be. I think it's a one-off. Yeah, I think it's a one-off.
It's a one-off. Definitely a one-off.
But this also this makes the decision to cut Latavius Murray all the more confounding because what he's doing in Baltimore, he could easily do with New Orleans. So I'm not sure. And the other thing too about the touchdowns is this team does feel comfortable putting Taysom Hill out there on the goal line, and
Of course.
that's a problem for the wide receivers and the running backs.
It's a problem for a lot.
So,
I mean, they did it last year as well, and it was just one of those things. It's like, why are you doing that?
yeah,
I understand he's a goddamn freak, but
yeah, I know. I mean, like I would give the ball to Kamara, but they
give him a different role.
yeah, I mean, I would give the ball to Kamara, but like this offense just doesn't look very good, frankly.
Yep.
Like Jameis has like these like come to Jesus moments where it's like, oh my God, like how did he do that? And then he goes back to being Jameis Winston after that. So, I mean, like if Kamara can get the targets, I'm encouraged. But Jameis historically hasn't been a guy that really targets guys out of the backfield. So if you get 4 to 6 targets from Kamara, I would say you'd have to be pretty happy with that. And you just hope that he can do a lot with those targets.
Yep.
But overall, I mean, I think like I said, I think like I do think Haj could win the league. And like thinking back on it, I think like you probably still are the favorite, but I would put Haj like close to you because I think both of you have really good depth, and Robinson was very, very good, and it looks like the Jaguars are deciding or having another coming to Jesus moment where, wow, James Robinson's better than Carlos Hyde. I'm glad they finally figured that out.
Way better.
Yeah, it's a great team.
And they're trusting him finally. They want him the ball. They want to give him the ball. So I'm excited for that. And I mean, overall, I think my team could put up this number at least 2 more times this year, if not 3. I also think I could break 200 for the first time in this league. So I'm looking forward to that. Moving on to probably my favorite matchup of this week, outside of my own. Ryan versus Badger. And the reason why this was my favorite matchup is just because of how close it was and how fucking intense, excuse my French, but how intense it was at the end. Because, I mean, just looking at how it ended when he has Badger has Carlson going into Monday night only down 3 points. And you look at Carlson, and he put up less than 3 points back in 2019, like maybe 3 times. But in all 2020, I think he was over like 5 points every single matchup and every week that he played. And you think, how could he do this? And he gets 2 extra points, and it's like, okay, he needs 1 more, and he wins the game because of the the decimal points here. And he winds up missing a 52-yard field goal, which puts him back down below the points added, and then he never kicks it again because the Chargers just absolutely control the game. And I mean, Ryan just comes out with an easy 2-0 here. Obviously, Badger gets 1-1 for the win, which he deserves it because he scored the highest points in a loss this week. But I don't think this matchup is that close if Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill don't throw that last touchdown to each other.
Yeah, that's the caveat here.
It really is. Like they literally put up 89 points combined.
Absurd. Well, it was really 90, right? Because you factor in those decimals.
I mean,
it's stupid.
Yeah,
stupid. It's
almost 90. Yeah.
This stack is outside of Rodgers and Adams is probably the best in football.
I think this.
It might be better. It might be better.
This stack is definitely the best in football for fantasy.
So I mean, like, this is the thing with Tyreek Hill. He'll have 2 weeks where he gives you 5 points apiece, and then he'll give you a 50-point performance.
But it was massive. It came in a time where his team actually shit the bed for Ryan. Like that was I think that scares me the most is if you actually
that's what I'm saying.
Make it a normal game for them where it's like 30 and 20. His team is hurting.
Ryan is probably the biggest faller out of the top 5 teams, even though he won for me.
I agree. Based on this week, you could see where he is hurting. RB's obviously.
Yeah.
And he's losing. He lost Gronk. Jonnu Smith did decent because he got that touchdown, but once again, you don't like touchdowns, so you take it away, and he has 5 points.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I don't really like Josh Jacobs, but that deal just looks worse and worse for Ryan.
It definitely got worse once he had an injury in McCaffrey. Like instantly
Yeah.
terrible.
So I mean, like, we can only tell people so much that depth is important. I mean, God, for if Ryan loses one more player, this could go south really quickly.
And how? I mean, what's he will attempt to practice Wednesday for Christian McCaffrey.
I would. What do you put his odds of playing this week? Maybe 50%, and even if he does,
Maybe less.
it's probably going to be okay. Even then, Chuba Hubbard wasn't anything special. I think he is definitionally. I think he's just a guy. Like, I think he's the definition of just a guy.
Yeah.
But that's enough. That's enough to be in a timeshare with an injured Christian McCaffrey. But Melvin Gordon just kind of. He had like an okay game on the ground. He had like a few big runs, but that's the thing with him. Like, either it's going to be a few big boom runs and his yards per carry is going to look great, or he's just going to be a trotter, kind of like James Conner, who's a little bit better. Myles Gaskin shouldn't be in any starting lineups. Like, I think that ship has kind of sailed.
Agreed. He was over going into the season.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the wide receivers and quarterbacks for Ryan, and there's very little margin for error.
Yes.
So, for all the people who said that Ryan is a favorite with, Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, I think it's a very boring analysis, frankly. So, yeah.
But on the other hand,
it's a win. It's a win, and he's 2-0,
really
and but. I
place.
think context is really important here. It's still not an encouraging performance, even though he won.
Yeah. And I think on the other hand, it was a beautiful performance from Badgers team. I think Badgers team is a playoff team really looking at the whole league holistically. Badgers team is definitely better than 6 other teams. So he could definitely make playoffs. You really he's hurting here because AJ Brown was hurt, and if you put AJ Brown in there, he's winning this matchup.
Yep.
I mean, if Carlson hits a field goal, he's winning the matchup. So that's really all you look at is literally a field goal would have won the matchup here. Barkley looking beautiful, having a great game. DJ Moore once again just absolutely taking advantage of everything that's being handed to him. I think Fournette clearly owns that job, so that's a great RB to have as like a RB2, RB3 flex player. And overall, just a great performance by Badgers team. Is it his high point? I believe so. I would say it's about like 80%, 90% of his team's max.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love it. It hurts to see him lose by a kicker, but we've seen 2 people lose by a kicker, and just adds more, flames to the fire of do we remove kickers in defense? So.
Yeah. I mean, AJ Brown would have won this matchup for Ryan. Yeah. Ryan might be the luckiest team right now, and I know when you have Mahomes and Hill, it's hard to say that you're lucky, but Thielen was really driven by touchdown rate in weeks 1 to 3, and I think he paid close to full price, if not a premium for Thielen.
Yeah.
And look, Thielen's not young, and you saw what happens when Justin Jefferson asserts his dominance over this wide receiver group. Now, I mean, DJ Moore, let's talk about him for a second. DJ Moore is what we thought Calvin Ridley would be. The only reason I was worried about DJ Moore this year was because he had Sam Darnold, who, I think he's kind of like the Jalen Hurts of this week, where he really didn't look that good, to be honest with you. He made a couple of nice throws, but Sam Darnold just really didn't look that good. But
Yeah.
regardless, DJ Moore's getting the touches and he's getting the air yards, and he's just like one of the most incredible athletes at the position. Probably top 6 or 7 athlete at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I'm kind of upset I traded him. I don't know why I did that.
I mean, hindsight's 2020. I think I gotta look back at the trade, but I think it was a pretty solid return.
It was Galladay in a 2023 first and his 2022 first for my 2022 first and DJ Moore. So at this point, obviously, I would have gotten a lot more
if I just first.
I would have, and a slight possibly upgrade in 2022 first by getting his. But if I hold him, I obviously don't trade him and I play him instead of Allen Robinson, and I might be undefeated at this point if I have him.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. I think the process was correct though.
Yeah,
and this goes into the whole process versus results debate, which is so exhausting. But you know, you have one great week and people tell you you're wrong, even though the process to getting to your decision was correct. You know, that's something that I think people need to keep in mind when things like this happen, and like when my team doesn't do well, or some other team that I know is using the correct process to get their lineup together. Like Badger's process, I think is very sound. I think he's a very good manager, and losing by 3 points, you know, doesn't speak to how bad his process was.
Nah, he's shit. He's terrible.
Yeah,
he lost.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing I want to fight in this league.
He lost. But also talking about Ryan's luck, because you did say that, and I wanted to bring this up. He does have the second highest points against in this league. However, he is in 4th place at 5-3. He also, I'm pretty sure, has most of his wins of 5-3 from a points for median. Actually, yes, that is correct. I think 3 of them are for points for median. And it's one of those things where he has the most points in the league and he has the most points against, and he would only have 2 wins, I think, based on matchups here.
You'd be 2-2.
And could be lower middle of the pack, and it's something to think about, because when he came last place, he basically had the most points for and the most points against in the year that he was last place. So
I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure he was up there with like insane high numbers on both ends, and it's just like, damn, like you're playing tough matchups and it's crazy. Once again, he plays me, you know, which we'll go over next week, but he does play me in week 5. So
yeah, I mean it's a lot of I'm trying to think of the term here. It's a lot of gold and then a lot of hay after that.
Yeah,
I guess is the best analogy. Like, yeah, he needs Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes to stay healthy.
He does.
And they have been healthy in their career, so I'm not gonna say that's not possible, but either one of those two gets injured, especially Tyreek Hill. It's going to be a serious problem. And like whenever you lose a really good player like that, it's always going to be a big problem, but especially for Ryan, you know, the depth just isn't there, you know, unlike it is for you and Derek and Haj and Andy even for that matter. So of those 4, I think Ryan's in the most trouble, I would say.
I agree. And then really just moving on to like how every team performed. Obviously, my team outperforming the whole league and being the top performer this week. And then we have just low performance by you and Chris. Chris slightly anticipated, but not this low, but lower. You kind of surprising at 97, but you know, with those injuries, you gotta expect that it's gonna happen. Just I don't know. Biggest surprises here, it's just like Leo and Pete are pretty consistent. You know, scratch Pete's first week, but he's been consistently around the same time, same as Leo. Dan is consistently at the bottom. So there's a lot of consistent and predictable things with this with our league right now, and it might be a good way to make money with betting on better fantasy.
Good. That's a good one. Good one. Yeah, I went 3-3 with my bets. I gotta look back at which ones they were.
Yeah,
But
I was talking to them, and a lot of people brought it up that we want to have a way to track our match, like your weekly progress. Like, oh, you placed this many bets, you put up, you risked this much, you made this much, you lost this much this week. Because
yeah.
it's tough when you're like, you place all these bets and then you're like, oh, I gotta go calculate, and you don't know. And then I also want a friends list to where, like, say me and you are friends. I don't see your current bets, but I see how well you did at the end. Like, it's like, oh, week 4 of NFL, Smith won the most money, Vinny lost the most money this week, and then the next week, and you see like the percentage win rates and stuff. That would be kind of a cool thing to add.
And then like you could see like who like what their accuracy rate is on like money lines or spreads or over unders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's so much that better fantasy can do, and it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it is.
That we get to see it at the start, and we get to see where it's going to end up, because it's going to be so advanced, and I'm hyped for it.
I hate them because it's such a good idea. I wish I came up with it.
I actually had the idea, and I talked to my buddy, who actually, you see this building right here? He lives in this building.
Okay.
And I was like, I want people to bet on our league, and I know I was telling you guys this before we even knew about Better Fantasy, and he came up that we should make like a Patron every single week, where you would like buy into that package of the player and the matchup, like to make it legal.
Yeah.
And then this company falls into the lap. But moving on from Better Fantasy, I think just big performances and small performances per players. Once again, Allen Robinson is another question mark that a lot of people should be looking into as to like what's going on. Do you want to buy low on him? Possibly for a dynasty league, maybe start to look at the team and trade definitely lower amount than you would before the season started, because that owner must be panicking, especially if he's like a wide receiver 2 for him and he needs someone instantly. I think DeAndre Swift is another like question mark of like what's happening there, especially with with Jamal Williams out touching him.
Yeah.
Last week.
I think I would buy low on Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
And if you can get DeAndre Swift, please do it. He's like the RB7, and he's had like 2 weeks where like he just hasn't gotten the workload. And everything that Dan Campbell has said, and everything that the beat has said, is that the workload's coming. He's getting to close to 100% from that groin injury that he sustained in the training camp. And he doesn't need many touches to be very good, and those are the kinds of guys we love to target in fantasy. So yeah, but my question about Allen Robinson is, I think he still is the wide receiver 1 in Chicago, but I mean Darnell Mooney looked really damn good.
He did, and it's going to be interesting to see how it progresses over the year and how the Bears will do with trying to keep Allen Robinson there. As an owner of him, do I want him to stay there? Possibly, if he builds that connection with Justin Fields, but at this point, I think he belongs at another team that deserves him.
Yeah, I mean, who would you what team would go for that? Would it be
for like a wide receiver 1 that wants to compete? I mean, it would be kind of crazy. Hear me out. Mike Williams gets traded because the Chargers still don't like him, even though he is going off. Keenan Allen's kind of old, but he's still there. I mean, if you add that little super team, it would be kind of crazy. Just a thought. But not realistic. Who knows where he goes? I think he just goes to it.
Yeah.
Maybe the Eagles, because they have
I was just about to say the Eagles. Yeah.
And they have Devonta Smith, and that would be pretty sick.
I was just about to say them.
The Colts, if you really want to like ruin his career more.
God, I'd love to see him sign a massive 2-year deal with the Chiefs. I would love that in the offseason.
I would be able to sell the shit out of him, but I would keep him.
Yeah.
But moving on to another player that I think a lot of people should try and sell at a medium price right now and sell the hype behind his name is Miles Sanders. His points aren't there, but I think you should try and manipulate whoever you're trading with by saying like it was just weird games, matchup. Like try to like word it correctly, but I think you should be getting rid of him. I think you should be trying to get like a wide receiver 2 for him right now, because you're not getting a running back unless you're getting like Chase Edmonds. I would probably trade Miles Sanders for Chase Edmonds plus like.
It's close. It's close. I want to see it for one more week with Kenny Gainwell, but he does look good.
But that thing, you wait that 1 week, you gotta take that risk. Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah,
you gotta be willing to understand the process. There's a process thing, Like,
yeah. Nick Sirianni is terrible. He's not a good coach, and to misuse Miles Sanders to this extent is a fireable offense, in my opinion. Like, in the way that the Jaguars were using Carlos Hyde over James Robinson, it kind of feels the same. And Nick Sirianni just looks clueless on the sideline. Like, you see him on during the game, he just looks like he has no idea what he's doing. But, like, yeah, I mean, I would go get Kenny Gainwell. Now, let me ask you another guy to sell high on. What do you think about Laviska Shenault? Selling high on Shenault.
The only reason why he could sell high on him right now at this moment is because DJ Chark's out for the season. I'm pretty sure
that's what I'm thinking,
right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things like, all right, is Urban Meyer going to get fired for touching, a probably legal but younger legal girl and letting her grind? I feel like that's like a weird cancel culture thing outside of like the locker room that they're trying to force on him. I mean, him canceling an owners meeting on a Monday as the coach is kind of bad.
There's so many more reasons that he would be fired. That they could cite.
The locker room hates him. They're I'm pretty sure they're laughing at his situation right now. They find it funny.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
So is that a team building thing for the team? Yeah, they find it funny, but do they want to listen to him anymore?
No.
Is the question here, and I think that's the question for the Jags organization, to where they might just fire him and throw in an interim, and that might help the team because they might be like, look, this is what we need to work here. James Robinson works. Yeah. Throwing the ball to Laviska is going to work because we saw that in the preseason with T-Law. I mean, if you need... I'm taking a while on this question. If you need the wide receiver, I say you keep him.
Yeah.
But he could be a solid trade piece to like put on with another guy to like buff up another player in redraft.
I would agree.
Dynasty, you keep him. Dynasty, you're holding that man.
See, I don't even know in Dynasty if I keep him if I get the right deal. Yeah.
Well, I mean everyone has a price for the right deal, but I don't think I'm looking to trade him. I think if people come to me, yes, but I'm not looking to get rid of him right now.
Yeah, no. When I say sell high, I mean like people are coming to you with an offer that
I would probably
is above their value. Like in theory, like you would do that for almost every player, but of course there are some players, no matter what, like you're probably holding on to them. Mm-hmm. Shenault would probably like top the list of guys that I would sell high on though, and
take the offer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of just like a poor man's Deontay Johnson, and like that's fine, that's a good thing, but he's not an alpha wide receiver. DJ Chark is. I know he's hurt, but Marvin Jones is going to really, I think, take on more volume because he was underutilized.
Yeah.
And another thing to keep in mind, too, is that James Robinson is an adequate pass-catching back, and they are getting Travis Etienne back next year. And I think those are two very good players that the Jaguars should utilize heavily. And if they're going those short to intermediate routes, what does that leave for Laviska Shenault, who's not necessarily a deep threat wideout? I don't really know. So do you sell high off of a 17-point performance in PPR leagues, I would seriously consider that. If you get like a running back, I don't know. Like if you got an offer of what would be like a comparable running back? Let me look through this list here.
Darrell Henderson, Mike Davis.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't do Mike Davis. Maybe Darrell Henderson though. Like
maybe Javonte Williams in a redraft.
I would do
in
that.
A redraft. Yeah.
Absolutely, I would do that.
You know what I'm saying? Like
in a dynasty league, a million percent.
I think Fournette might be too overvalued for in a redraft for that trade.
Fournette is kind of the guy though, because I mean Ronald Jones.
Well, I just don't think the Fournette owner is gonna accept that one.
Yeah.
Like I think you're solid low on Fournette with just doing a straight up. But a straight up. I mean, like if Nick
Chase Edmonds.
I think I'd rather Chase Edmonds.
It's close though.
It is.
Depending on what your team needs are. Like if you have Javonte Williams as your third running back, I would and you need a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you might be buying a little high there, but you gotta do that stuff in redraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's close. I mean he's probably the guy I would sell high on if I had the opportunity to. Case in point.
Now moving on to just like a quick couple waivers, and then we can maybe wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Let's see waivers. Who were cool? I mean, our waivers. I could show you guys our waivers real quick. I personally bought the Seals Jones, the tight end. If Logan Thomas is out for deep, I thought that would be a decent stash for $3. I thought more people would want that. We had Alex Collins get picked up, which kind of curious. I mean, he had like a good game, but I think that might be like an overreaction with getting him for $7, maybe.
Chris Carson looks banged up, dude, and Rashard Penny just went on the IR. So
that's true. It's a good depth pick just to have that there. You picking up Brandon Bolden and dropping J.J. Taylor like instantly after that game, and you're like,
I hate it. I hate that I had to do it. I think J.J. Taylor is the eventual replacement for James White, but it's not happening right now. Look like
it. Brandon Bolden gives me LeGarrette Blount vibes.
Yeah, kind of like a bigger guy. He's got the great hair.
He gives me the Blount vibes. He just comes in and just does what he needs to do.
He's a great pass catching back, and I think they trust him because he's really good in pass blocking as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like a flyer in the way that I think Cordell Patterson is. They're both special teams, all pros, like some of the best in the business, who do have some ability and just for whatever reason haven't gotten the opportunity as fantasy players up until now. So yeah.
Seeing Randall Cobb get picked up by the team that continues to drop him is kind of just so funny. Was that an over? It's probably an overreaction to.
It's a complete overreaction.
How he performed. I mean, you would like to see him do well, but also, Rodgers could like him, right? Because he's on, right?
Yeah.
He's with Green Bay. I don't know why Sleeper still has him shown on Texans. But
Vinny, how many touchdowns did Randall Cobb have yesterday?
I don't even know.
He had 2.
Yeah, overreaction.
So, you know what I'm going to say here. I'm not even going to say it. Yeah, just don't chase touchdowns, folks. And that's what happened.
True. And then I picked up Jeremy McNichols just because he has that pass catching ability. He was seen on the field more often with, for the receiving side. He got 12 targets. He got 12 targets, which is kind of filthy. And I think if Derrick Henry ever gets hurt, Jeremy Nichols is right there, and I have Derrick Henry, so I figured I'd have to go after that. Knowing that he is a good pass catcher and the RB, I figured it's pretty solid, so that's why I went after him. But for, I guess, everyone else who wouldn't be doing these things, Damian Williams is a good pickup right now, maybe. P. Ryan.
Oh, he is. He would be my top waiver ad.
Like, P. Ryan, pretty solid. Jamison Crowder would be a decent pickup, not one of my tops. Is it safe to say that AJ Green is bad?
I no.
Not after
He
those
looks
three.
fine. Like he looks fine.
He's had 6 targets every single week. 6 targets on the dot every single week so
Yeah,
far.
that's about the only reason I would do it.
That's a good flex.
It is. It's fine. Yeah. He just he's looked good the last couple of weeks. Like I can't really deny it, but he's not a guy that I would feel comfortable starting whatsoever.
No,
and
yeah.
like to me, if you don't think you could start a guy in a pinch, I wouldn't even bother with the waiver pickup.
Yeah. Chris is going to be starting AJ Green next week though, right?
Oh God, is that actually happening?
I mean, he said it in the chat, and I believe he will because just based on how his team is playing, he will probably start up over like Waddle, and then Waddle will probably go for like 25 points. But he's also playing Pete, so I think every position matters in this. But we'll go over that.
We'll get into that.
Who else are you picking up for people that are?
I'm glad you picked up McNichols, but I also hate you for it because I did offer him to you for fab money.
Yeah, no,
so we could have helped each other out.
At the time, I wasn't looking at it.
Hey, I tried to tell you, and I'm glad that you finally listened to me. But very big college performer at Boise State, super explosive. He's got the prototypical size. He ran a 4.49 40. He's got good burst, really good agility.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen once Darrington Evans comes back because they're very much the same player.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be something to monitor. I would assume Darrington Evans becomes the new backup because he was a 3rd-round pick. And he looked pretty good in the one game he played in the preseason, but again,
he's just on IR right now. That's really all.
Yeah, he should be coming back, I think, in the next week or so. So, I think in the meantime, until Evans is ready, I think he's a very good stash. I do think some of this was buoyed by Brown and Julio Jones being out, but
agreed.
If Derrick Henry does see targets, which I think is in his best interest just to keep him fresh, if they're going to keep feeding him the ball, you probably just want to get the most out of him by handing the ball off to him rather than, relying on getting targets. So if you remove this anomaly of the 12 targets from McNichols and then say the baseline was 3 targets a game before this, and then you add on Henry's targets of 3 to 4 a game. If you get 7 targets out of McNichols, that's, really solid flex value for a couple of weeks there.
Yeah.
So I like that. And for really, really, really super duper duper deep leagues, I would be targeting a guy on the Miami Dolphins practice squad, Jared Dokes.
Are you telling everyone your pickups right now?
I didn't pick him up, did I?
No.
So if you have a really deep league, even deeper than ours, let's say you're a 14-team league with 12-man benches. Myles Gaskin looks like the best running back in Miami right now on the active roster, but he's really not been that good, to be honest with you. So we want to target running backs that are explosive, that were pretty good in college. I believe Jared Dokes was a pretty good college performer at Cincinnati.
Yep.
I like him as a player. I watched this film. I think he's a good player. We love to target running backs in kind of enigmatic backfields. That's how you got James Robinson, right?
Yeah, I mean
that's where the diamonds in the rough really come out.
Literally, all the research I did was kind of crazy. So last year for James Robinson, or 2 years ago, I just did so much research, and then just looking into it, people were the rumors, and it was the only running back if Fournette left, and they were just see ya. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
that's actually insane.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Jared Dokes is the next James Robinson or Elijah Mitchell, but I do think there is something there. They did use a draft pick on him as a 7th round pick. It's not a whole lot, but They obviously liked him enough to draft him,
Yep.
even when they had so many running backs on the team already.
Mm-hmm.
And with how bad Miami has been in the running game, I get the sense he might get on the active roster and get some opportunities coming up. So
Yeah.
don't be surprised in 5 to 10 weeks if Jared Dokes is, on the RB 3 to 4 range, So yeah, that's a real deep only league waiver ad.
Do you have anything else before we wrap this up? Because we kind of did a lot of waivers here. We did the matchups.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow we go over week 5 and like everything else.
Yeah. I do want to take a little bit of a victory lap on Cedric Wilson. I tried to tell everyone. I know that was the one podcast that didn't go out because we had issues uploading it. But I was telling everyone Cedric Wilson is taking over the Michael Gallup role. He's talented enough to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been one beautiful man recently that, for whatever reason, is not going noticed. He's been, the targets haven't been there, but he's super efficient with his touches, and I do think he's going to get more opportunities if they get into high-scoring affairs, which hasn't happened recently.
Yeah, not really. And then, now they're playing the Giants this week, so it's going to be...
Yeah, it's probably not the week to get Cedric Wilson, but, this is the KJ Osborne of the of the Cowboys, who I think is actually a little bit better than KJ Osborne. And, that's kind of another guy that I was in on that seems to have hit so far. But one last thing, I do hope that we as a human society can put Ben Roethlisberger and Urban Meyer on a rocket and ship them out into outer space, because they're stealing so much value out of some of the guys on their respective teams. It's criminal, frankly.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing I'll say for today.
I agree. Big Ben needs to be retired and out of this league already.
Yeah.
Which I believe is going to happen to Gronk. He's not going to play the rest of the year. But that will be decided. He's also just a freak, and he just doesn't care about his body, and he just wants to play. So
doesn't watch film, apparently.
Yeah, no, doesn't. Just has Brady do it for him. So tomorrow we talk about week 5. We go over all of our matchups in the league, and we also just go over who we're looking to start, who we think is going to outperform, who might underperform, and just key players to look out for, and injuries, and how everything's going on with practicing and matchups and all that fun stuff. That's going to be tomorrow, probably around 6 or 6:30. Today was a little earlier, start at 5:30. Just wanted to get it over with and get it done as early as possible. So thank you all once again for always tuning in, listening, and hanging out with us. We got Twitter, PnC _Dynasty. Make sure to check out Better Fantasy for fantasy bets. If you have Sleeper, it'll be sick to get in there. They do have a Discord. We have a Discord. You can click it on our Twitch, and whatever else. We're here to help you guys. We're always looking to answer any questions and provide our insight and information. So thank you again for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.